So, a couple of weeks ago, I released a dissection of what I declared the worst written scene in all of Star Wars, with the caveat that I was removing any and all scenes that completely broke the universe from consideration. Because if you do include those, there's no fun discussion or analysis to be done. It'd be like talking about who the worst president in American history was, and there's an imaginary president who fired actual nukes at every major American city. We'd have to exclude that one from the conversation to even have a conversation. But today is May the 4th, Star Wars Day. Yay! Remember all the good stuff? So, I thought I'd make a positive video and have a bit of uplift today. So I decided to dissect the best written scene in all of Star Wars. And my argument is that that scene is Luke and Vader in the Emperor's throne room in Return of the Jedi.
From here, you will witness the final destruction of the Alliance and the end of your insignificant rebellion.
The scene commences with this line. Luke understands the entire mission he's on is one big trap for the rebellion. Luke thought he was coming here to draw Vader away from the Endor moon and that he would die alongside the Emperor. But now it seems clear the Death Star isn't going anywhere. So he's now played himself right into the Emperor's hands, and his confidence has tanked.
The hate is swelling in you now.
Unlike what we often get in new scenes, this line isn't just explaining to us brain-dead viewers what is happening on the screen. It's the Emperor voicing Luke's dark thoughts, making it harder for Luke to ignore them.
With each passing moment, you make yourself more my servant.
Much of what the Emperor says throughout this scene is meant to torture Luke, inflict pain and fear on him. Fear of the loss of rebellion, fear even of what he might become.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
And Luke tries to ignore it, but he can't. If he faces away from the Emperor, he has to watch the rebellion being destroyed. Palpatine even throws in a shot at his father.
You, like your father, are now mine. Your fleet is lost, and your friends on the Endor moon will not survive. There is no escape, my young apprentice.
This line serves two purposes. One, it's the Emperor further taunting Luke, getting under his skin, egging him on toward the dark side. Two, it sets the stakes for both Luke and us, the audience. Luke has lost. He's not losing, he has already lost. He came here ready to die, but he thought he would be taking the Emperor with him because the fleet would destroy the Death Star. But the intel the Bothan spies brought back was intentionally false. The second Death Star is operational, and the mission to disable the shields has walked directly into a trap ready to be sprung. The rebellion is done. Luke's friends are done. Luke only has two legitimate options: to take revenge on the Emperor, and in doing so fall to the dark side, or die, and not accomplish anything in doing so.
Good. I can feel your anger.
The Emperor's trap is working. Luke is losing control over his emotional response to his hopeless state.
Take your weapon. Strike me down with all of your hatred, and your journey towards the dark side will be complete.
We're left to imagine what might be going through Luke's head right now. Maybe he wants revenge over the Emperor for destroying the rebellion. Maybe he's preoccupied with what the Emperor did to his father. Maybe he's under a notion that if he kills the Emperor, he could somehow still save everyone. What's clear is Luke probably won't hold out much longer. His last attempt at resistance is short-lived. He turns his back on the Emperor, but only lasts a second before he goes for a kill. But of course, the Emperor never intended for Luke to kill him. He wants Luke to fight his father. How much further to the dark side could you sink than killing your own father? In Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine broke Anakin's spirit. In Anakin's disgust at what he had become, he gave in to what Palpatine wanted. I realize Revenge of the Sith came out after Return of the Jedi, but it's a nice tie-in to draw a parallel to how Anakin fell and how Palpatine envisioned Luke falling. Now, the choreography. It isn't as polished as some of the other fights in the saga, for sure. It isn't as impressive as any of the fights in the prequels, but it excels in another way. There's clear emotion in every slash. Luke is dealing out powerful swings, and quickly too, considering the other fights that we see in the original trilogy. Luke is fighting angry. The 3 fights that Vader has in the OT all come with a different emotion from his opponent. In A New Hope, Obi-Wan is calm. He has accepted what he knows the outcome will be, knowing he will still be able to help Luke. In Empire Strikes Back, Luke is scared. Fear drove him to Bespin, and his whole fight is one of a frightened, outclassed opponent on his heels. Here, Luke taps into anger, and it works. His anger is something Vader hasn't faced from a competent opponent. It outstrips Vader's, who has been reduced to mainly depression.
It is too late for me, son.
And that's what the Emperor wants to tap into, Luke's young anger, his emotion as well as his raw power.
Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
It's interesting. If the Emperor shut up, Luke would probably keep attacking Vader. But his remarks remind Luke of his true enemy. Remember, he picked up his lightsaber to kill the Emperor, not Vader. And when Palpatine opens his mouth, it briefly reminds Luke that he's being manipulated. So why does Palpatine keep talking? Well, he thinks it'll work.
Your overconfidence is your weakness.
Your faith in your friends is yours.
I will not fight you, Father.
Luke's resolve changes with Palpatine's words. And even as Darth Vader walks up the stairs to him with his lightsaber ignited, Luke refrains from even raising his weapon until the absolute final moment before he's killed.
You are unwise to lower your defenses.
Luke has returned to his original plan, trying to reach the good in his father.
I feel the conflict within you. Let go of your hate.
It is the only conceivable way he can win, or at least walk out of this throne room without falling to the dark side. But for now, he doesn't have a plan in mind for how to do it beyond just not dying yet. And let's not forget what's actually happening here. Palpatine wants to make Luke his apprentice, which means Vader needs to die. So the only way Vader can live is if he kills Luke. Luke's expression has changed. He's much more level. He has regained the clarity of his goal.
Your thoughts betray you, Father. I feel the good in you. The conflict.
This is one of the things about fights with Jedi or Force users in general that can make them so much more interesting than a regular old sword fight. Sure, the telekinetic powers make it cooler, but the mental and emotional aspects that get turned up are what make it interesting. There's a second battle raging here, and we're keyed in by comments like these that all 3 characters make throughout it.
There is no conflict.
You couldn't bring yourself to kill me before, and I don't believe you'll destroy me now.
I've mixed feelings about this line. Vader didn't kill Luke before because he, like Palpatine here, was trying to turn him to the dark side. If Luke hadn't yeeted himself off the ledge, who's to say Vader wouldn't have killed him? But Luke uses it to imply Vader has never wanted to kill him. Maybe he's trying to recontextualize the situation in Vader's mind to make him question his own degree of fallenness.
Good.
Again, throughout all of this, Palpatine is victorious. If Luke kills his father and falls to the dark side, then he gets a younger, more powerful apprentice. But if Vader kills Luke, then Palpatine's apprentice knows no rival anymore, and any nuisance trying to redeem him is gone. The hopelessness of this scene is captured in every element of it, from the black setting to the low, slow, creeping music to Luke staring out into the abyss of space at explosions of his friends.
You cannot hide forever, Luke.
I will not fight you.
Okay, I'll be totally honest. I'm not sure how Luke hides so well down here. It doesn't seem that dark, and the space is pretty sparse.
Your thoughts betray you. Your feelings for them are strong, especially for sister.
This is the kind of mental warfare I'm talking about. The ability to sense emotions and fear and use that to press on pressure points.
If you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will.
Luke is a Jedi, like his father before him. The thing that breaks Luke is the same thing that broke Anakin. It's not Palpatine who truly breaks Luke, it's Vader. Luke is prepared to die in lieu of turning to the dark side. But it's when someone he loves is threatened that his own soul no longer matters. Just like Anakin threw out everything to try and protect Padme, Luke is ready to throw out everything to try and protect Leia. It's a perfect example of why attachment leads to the dark side. Luke may be acting out of altruism, out of protection for someone else, but it's still wrong. It's the actions you take that corrupt your soul, not the reasons you do them. And the choreography is great, in a way. Again, it's telling the character's story with no necessity for words. Luke isn't fighting anymore, he's just trying to kill Vader. He's lost control of all his restraint, even the restraint that helps keep you polished and effective as a duelist. But the ferocity takes Vader off guard, and Luke gets him on his heels. Now Vader is defending. And I want to make a note of something that is actually a big deal, but has been super diluted by Disney in basically all of its creations. Luke lets out a scream. Now, again, I realize screaming in duels is commonplace in Disney Star Wars. But unless I'm missing something, this is the only time a Jedi, or Sith by the way, gives an angry scream during a battle. I guess unless you count Obi-Wan's or Anakin's nose in The Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. You see, Jedi fought without emotion so as not to cloud their mind. The Sith fought with anger, but for them it made them focus, not scream with blind rage.
I can feel your anger. It gives you focus, makes you stronger.
Traitor!
There are more, but you get the picture. The scream of rage from Luke is a loss of control that even Anakin never experienced. Now, the choreography does get a little clunky, but the raw emotionality of it makes up for it in my book. And the cinematography is fantastic. They're in darkness, but you know exactly what's happening. The darkness even obscures Luke's face, paralleling to his giving into the dark side. And this is one of the best shots in all of Star Wars. Granted, there are a lot of great shots, and this doesn't come close to taking the crown, but the silhouettes of the two characters with the lightsabers serving as a guide, and I love how the strikes briefly illuminate Luke's face. Now again, I'm analyzing everything about the scene, not just the good. It doesn't make sense that Luke doesn't slash through the guardrail any of the first 3 times he hits it. He's swinging with as much force as when he does break it, and he doesn't have the added task of also going through Vader's wrist to slow him down. You can be dumb and try to do a lot of legwork to try and make it make sense, but it's a small nitpick, and I'd rather just call it that and move on. As Luke does his best Frank Costanza shopping for a doll at Christmas time impression.
Many Christmases ago, I went to buy a doll for my son. I reached for the last one they had, but so did another man. As I rained blows upon him, I realized there had to be another way.
It's more of watching Luke lose control. And it's something that after knocking Vader's lightsaber aside, Luke goes for his hand. There are 2 ways to take this. 1, he's restraining himself just a little to disarm rather than going straight for a kill shot.
Kill shot, I will not fail.
Or 2, he subconsciously wants to inflict pain. He wants Vader to suffer, which I think is more likely considering the rage Luke is fighting with. And of course, Luke gets his symbolism. He's looking at a defenseless opponent who just lost his hand and weapon down a chasm and realizes he and Vader have traded places.
Good.
And the Emperor's voice, ringing out in his supreme arrogance that he has conquered Luke, wakes Luke up. The manipulation that drove his father to the dark side has driven him right to the edge as well. Palpatine reminds Luke of who his true enemy is, and it's his downfall. The Emperor beats himself. His arrogance blinds him, but not in such a blatant way as we see in movies nowadays, where the villain's arrogance causes them to do something incredibly stupid, like keeping the hero alive so they can tell them their master plan. Palpatine makes the arrogant mistake of thinking that he is what has driven Luke to the dark side, rather than Vader threatening Leia.
Take your father's place at my side.
And this is my least favorite bit of the scene. This is some blatant, in-your-face symbolism. I get it, the tables have flipped. I didn't need that much help. This can and should be conveyed in a much more subtle way. Off the top of my head, I would get another shot of Vader from Luke's POV, the same one they showed earlier, not zoomed in. And when Luke throws away his lightsaber, he rubs his prosthetic hand with his real one for a quick second. Or you could have just stopped it with Luke looking at his own hand. You didn't need both of these extra shots. It feels a bit condescending that the audience would need this much help, although this is subtle compared to how much we're spoon-fed nowadays.
I'll never turn to the dark side.
This act of defiance from Luke throwing away his lightsaber is the nail in the coffin. He's not just deciding that he would rather die than turn to the dark side. He's more or less forcing himself to live, or die, rather, with that decision. Maybe. I don't know where he threw his lightsaber. Could be on the floor 10 feet away, well within reach with the Force. Who knows?
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
And this is Luke's last gasp effort to resurrect his father, to remind his father of who he used to be, who his son thinks he still is deep down.
So be it, Jedi. If you will not be turned, you will be destroyed.
This was the point from the beginning. Not you will die, you will be destroyed. This only ends in Luke's destruction, either the destruction of his life or the destruction of his soul. Unless, of course, Anakin Skywalker makes an appearance. But by all available evidence, Luke is in a hopeless situation and has been since he set foot in this throne room.
Young fool. Only now, at the end, do you understand?
Palpatine is unleashing a power of the dark side that Luke has had no knowledge of up to this point. Luke may have thought in making his defiant stand that Palpatine would have to try and convince Vader to kill him, and Luke could convince his father to turn. But he likely didn't expect the Emperor to be able to kill Luke himself.
Your feeble skills are no match for the power of the dark side.
There's nothing to analyze about this line. It's just a bad guy line.
You have paid the price for your lack of vision.
And that's what I say when a blind guy is crossing the street in front of me, but my light is green. Hey, sorry pal, Chipotle closes in 10 minutes. Luke is betting it all on Anakin. He's his last hope. So who was right? Does the Emperor have misplaced confidence? Or is Luke wrong to put his faith in others? Spoiler alert, Luke wins.
Now, young Skywalker, you will die.
This is, I guess, more a commendation of Revenge of the Sith making this scene mean more. This isn't just Anakin watching his son get smacked. It's a near mirror of when he first turned to the dark side, watching Palpatine shooting lightning at someone. Except this time, Palpatine isn't the perceived vulnerable one. It's clear he's the aggressor, and it's only happening because Anakin's master's original plan failed, which was to watch Anakin die. So Anakin watches and says, "Not again." His lifelong manipulation at the hands of Palpatine can end if he fights back just once. So he does it. He breaks free of the hold Palpatine has had over him, and he can die a free man. Walk it off, Palps. Just walk it off. The decision of what is the best written scene in all of Star Wars was difficult. As difficult as deciding which is the worst written scene was. There are some great scenes throughout the saga, and yes, a couple even came from the Disney era. At the end of the day, I was deliberating between this one and two of the monologues from Andor, Kino Loy's and Luthen Rael's. I landed on Luke and Vader because, while both of these monologues are fantastic in their substance, delivery, and particularly in Kino's case, the music working alongside it, Luke versus Vader tells the story through the action as much as the dialogue. And there's some iconic shots. The dialogue is still purposeful, almost every line has meaning that adds to the scene, but this is one thing modern Star Wars is missing. One of hundreds, but one. Fight scenes that reveal as much about the characters as dialogue can. That's called good writing. But like I said, this is a positive video, so I'll end with this. I'm positive we won't be seeing any scenes like this for a long while in Star Wars.